get going. Okay, so good evening, everyone, I guess. So it's myself, Casey O'Connor, and Erica Howlett here from Travelers today. So just a brief agenda. We're gonna introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about where we came from, what we're doing and such. Then I'm just gonna go over a brief little history about Travelers, just so you guys have more insight. I know that we were here last year, but just kind of just a brief 2-slide overview of the place. Then we'll go into a lot about IT architecture, so what exactly that means. Erica is going to talk about her role in IT architecture and what she does on a day-to-day and how it's important to the place. And I'll talk about my role in architecture. We're both kind of in different levels of our career, so you'll hear a little bit of that as well. Afterwards, we did want to slightly touch on some opportunities that Travelers has open right now, because although the world is in a pandemic, Travelers is actually doing a lot of hiring, and we have actually some co-op positions for your school. So we wanted to briefly touch on that. All right, so meet your speakers. So I'm Casey O'Connor. I graduated from UConn in 2017. Something interesting about me is I actually graduated with a communications degree, but I held all my internships at Travelers in technology and decided to go into their technology leadership development program, which is what I'm in right now. I'm currently in my 3rd year. And I work on a performance architecture team, and that's what I'll be talking about a little later in the presentation. My home base is Hartford, Connecticut, so there's many locations for Travelers, but I'm at our home state in Hartford. Something I think that's interesting about me is that I have 2 dogs, Zoe and Lenny, 2 cats, Luna and Toby, and 6 chickens. And if you're into The Office like I am, I have my little Dundee Award at my desk. They're all named after characters from The Office. So that's a little bit about me. Erica, you could go ahead and introduce yourself.
So my name is Erica Howlett. I graduated from Marist College in New York in 2011 with a dual degree in math and computer science. I graduated the program that Casey is in. So in 2011, the summer of 2011, right before I graduated, I had an internship with Travelers as an engineer. I loved the company. I loved the internship. It was super amazing, super engaging. And everyone at the company was really down to earth and personable, especially to someone who is new in their career. And so I joined the Technology Leadership Development Program and graduated in 2016 into digital enablement, which is the area that Casey and I are working in now. I am an enterprise applications architect, so I'm on the same team as Casey, but we have different niches in which we kind of operate different roles and responsibilities. I am also out of the Hartford office, and fun fact about me, as you can probably see in the background, I have 2 huskies, Nico and Keely, and I love to cook.
Sweet. Thanks, Erica. All right, so let's talk about Travelers. So Travelers was actually founded in 1864 by a man named James Batterson. He and a couple of people in the town, so right here in Hartford, Connecticut, were thinking about introducing accident insurance to the United States. Next, we have the founding of the St. Paul Fire Company. So this was actually after recognizing how many fires were taking place and the increasing threat of it. Alexander Wilkin in the Minnesota territory, and 16 other St. Paul businessmen decided that this was something that needed to be dealt with. So they actually came up with the St. Paul Fire and Marine Insurance Company a few years later in 1855. After that, in 2004, the 2 companies actually merged, and we created the Travelers, of which it is today. In short, Travelers is basically a leading provider of property casualty insurance. So anything from auto, from business, personal insurance. So your homes. If you're starting a small business, you obviously want some type of insurance. We have about 30,000 employees around the globe. So we're not only in the States, we also have some other branches elsewhere. But that's just a little bit of about us and what we do. You could see on this timeline some of the interesting things that have come to life here at Travelers. But yeah, we're an insurance company, but an insurance company that is heavily backed by technology. A little bit about Travelers today. So in total assets, we have 104 billion and our revenue is about 30 billion. Those numbers aren't exact to date, but we are also the only property casualty insurance in the Dow Jones 30, which is really, really good. I also just wanted to highlight some of the things that are more like interpersonal about our company. We've over time continually get some really good awards. So you can see on here like top 100 internship programs. I was in the intern program and I loved it, so I'm not surprised about that. Military and diversity. So just some of the things that kind of talk a lot to our culture as a company here at Travelers. We're very diverse, we're very inclusive year after year. So just a brief Travelers overview. Don't want to talk too much about it, but just so you guys are stepping into this with kind of an understanding of us working as technologists at a top insurance company. So architecture, Erica, did you want to take this slide?
Sure. So if you guys are like I was when I started my internship, I had zero knowledge that architecture as a role, as a like capability, I had no idea it existed. Everything that I learned in college was very engineering focused. And while I had the skill set and I didn't really understand that it was attributed to architecture, it's kind of our duty now as folks who are in architecture to educate and kind of inform you guys if you aren't getting this kind of exposure in school, just kind of what is architecture and why would you maybe want to go into it? What would you be passionate about if you were in the architecture field? So architecture has kind of two fundamental parts. There are two, kind of the combination of the two definitions that are on this slide. It's a framework and a set of guidelines for how you build or enhance a system. And part of that framework is the hardware, the software, the security, the data, anything really, all those components have both specialized architecture and then kind of general and overarching architecture. And so that's kind of a little bit where Casey and I play in two different niches. I am responsible kind of at a holistic level. I need to know enough about each of those individual parts. And then I work with Casey in the performance space to test and make sure that all those parts are working together, they're well-oiled, they're meeting expectations, and they don't have any adverse effects on any other applications. So basically architecture kind of is that 100,000 foot view of what are all the moving pieces in my application.
Yeah, I think something that I came into, because I kind of took my third rotational year as like a leap for me coming into architecture. I really knew nothing at all about it. I think one of the interesting things for me to learn about it is that it really encompasses quite a bit of everything. So you're working with different databases, you're working with different programming languages, you're working with different components, but you also have to understand the business case. And there's a bunch of different things that you need to think about as an architect, not only like what would be the best solution for an architecture, but also you're looking at cost benefits. So one pattern might cost us a ton of money and be the best one ever. But if we need to push something to production, what is the best way to do that? What is our spend and things like that? So it encompasses a really, really large portion of our applications that get sent out into, the real world externally or internally at Travelers is all I'd have to add to that.
Yep. All right, so we'll first take a dive into my role, some of the things that a typical enterprise architect is responsible for, and then I'll give you just kind of like a walkthrough, and this like is literally skimmed from my calendar last week, I think, when we put this together. So these are all actual meetings that I'm in kind of day to day, so you guys can get a real insight on that. Kind of every meeting is like a new jump and a new kind of area to play in, which kind of keeps every day pretty exciting. So enterprise architecture is a centralized organization. So a lot of times when we think about businesses, Casey talked a lot about how we have individual lines of business. So we have our bond and surety products, our personal insurance products, we have our business insurance products. All of those areas have their own dedicated architecture groups, and they are responsible for knowing the ins and outs of their business and how their applications need to function. But there is an enterprise architecture group that sits on top and makes best practices across all of the organizations so that communication between organizations is easy, that we're all using consistent technologies, so that engineers can kind of flow from one area to another should they want to and not have to learn a brand new technology stack. So the primary goal is kind of to make the organization, the technology organization, a well-oiled machine, and figure out how can we best help the business achieve its goals with the lowest spend, right? Like technology organization, you want to make sure that you're already kind of a cost area. So how can we help the business make educated decisions with where they're making investments in technology? So what kind of things, like what kind of strategies is enterprise architecture responsible for? Some main things are our cloud migration strategy. So what applications are we moving to the cloud when, as far as like readiness is concerned? Do we want to put certain data in the cloud yet? Do we have that trust level as a relatively risk adverse company? What can we target to go to the cloud, and how can we get there the quickest and most efficient way? API modernization. So when we're rating services, how can we make them reusable and easy to read and easy to access at an enterprise level, so that personal insurance and business insurance might be able to leverage the same security APIs and things like that. Development technology stacks. So we recently set a strategy that React is our technology stack from like a front end perspective. We're very node heavy, kind of in that in-between layer, GraphQL for data aggregation, and relatively heavy in like the Oracle SQL and Mongo spaces in the back end. So if an application came in and said like, hey, we want to use NoSQL, or hey, we want to use a different database stack, or hey, we want to use Vue instead of React, we would sit down with them and understand why would you like, what is it, what value adds does Vue have that React might not, and kind of have those conversations and decide, is this a technology stack we want to bring into the company? And then portfolio specific initiatives. So I am dedicated to our marketing and communications and internal employee engagement portfolio. So I specialize in that business. So things like our content management strategy, our public facing content, how are we making that easy to edit and to target specific audiences on things like our public facing site, travelers.com. We are about to go beta with a new mobile app. So that has been a big strategy for the last 2 years, and things like that. So like bigger, larger initiatives that require someone who, right, like I said before, is at that 100,000 foot level that's like taking a look at all the moving parts. So this is what an average day for me looks like. You'll notice that pretty much none of the topics are the same. I don't generally have meetings like, we're going to talk about this, and then an hour later, we're going to talk about the same thing in a different light with a different group. I very much have a super diverse set of responsibilities, which I love because like it keeps my brain kind of like in tip-top shape. Okay, we're going to talk about this at 9. We got to pivot to this at noon. I do a lot of whiteboarding sessions. So they used to be a lot easier in the office, but we're getting pretty good at virtual whiteboarding. Basically, that means say, all right, the business wants to like add a really cool commenting system into travelers.com. Okay, what do we need those comments to do? We'll list some capabilities. We prioritize those capabilities. We want to be able to reply with a photo. We want to be able to reply in line with a thread, and like get the business engaged in outlining a lot of those things. So one of the more recent ones we had was for our employee internet, and actually commenting is one of the capabilities that we're talking through at 11 o'clock. So those usually go for like 90 minutes minimum, just because people start getting really into it at about 45. And if you kill it at 60, then you lose a lot of that energy. Conversation with our business partners about the future of our content management platform. So what business capabilities are they looking for? Do they want drag and drop capability for our external website? Do they want artificial intelligence that smart tags photos and smart crops photos? Things of that nature. At 12:30, I might touch base with one of my application development teams. So I oversee 5 application development teams right now and provide them all with architecture guidance. And kind of we're talking through a payment modernization. So taking all of our payments off network and having a vendor, process and maintain all of the security protocols. Because in this day and age, obviously hacking, especially in the payments industry, could really sink us. So trusting a company that specializes in that level of security is something that we're looking to do with a lot of our capabilities. At 2 o'clock, I might sync up with one of our vendor partners who is helping us onboard a data visualization product that shows us how effective our email marketing campaigns are, which links are clicked the most, what demographic or what line of business is clicking those links, and how much time they're spending on those subsequent pages. And then to close out the day, I might talk to our leadership team about how our AWS modernization is going, how many applications we have there and what's slated to be moved there next and why. So a ton of different, interactions with different stakeholders, from the business to my application development teams to technology leadership, as well as, different categories, different capabilities within Travelers. And this is literally like a 2% chunk of everything that's going on in Travelers. So there's always a ton to learn and get involved in, and it breaks up the monotony for sure. So I know I went through that fast. Does anyone have any questions about enterprise architecture? I think we have a Q&A at the end too, but any questions now? Cool. I'll pass it over to Casey for performance.
Sweet. So as Erica said, we kind of work hand in hand. So me building this slide was kind of hard because when I hear performance architect and performance architecture, it's kind of all summed up in the name. So, but I really liked this definition that I found. So performance architecture uses the organization as a dynamic system where every part is affected and in turn affects every other part. So when you think about performance and how something is doing well or doing poorly, it's going to affect every other mechanism in the place. And that's why performance architecture is incredibly important, because we are the ones that are testing our systems and making sure the flows are actually working correctly, that they're hitting their right, that we're hitting the right targets, the right amount of time, and things like that. And things could go awry if not. Now, if you guys think about you being in college, you guys have certain requirements that you have to mark off to graduate, right? It's kind of the same thing with applications in a company such as Travelers. They need to hit certain points. Service level objectives is what we call them at Travelers. And those are basically just standards and guidelines that things need to be hitting. So whether they are requirements such like, what does the load time look like for a certain website? How long does it take to receive a chat back from our chatbot system? What is the amount of time it takes for a service call to come back with information? Those are all important things that kind of that really tailor our like way of how we perceive the company, both external and internally, right? Because I know I get frustrated when I go to a web page and I'm trying to do a simple search and it's just loading and loading and loading and loading and loading, right? That kind of gives you some negative feedback. We want to make sure our applications are up and running, both for our customers externally, but also those web applications and really anything else that we do internally for our employees. We want to make sure there's a seamless, smooth process that people go through, and it doesn't take hours on end to accomplish what you're trying to get at. So as a performance architect, we do a lot of things, but we mostly provide a direction and establish best practices that help ensure applications meet our performance objectives. As I just said, we also do this by using an array of different tools, such as things like LoadRunner, Dynatrace, which is an AI mechanism that will run through our flows and kind of understand where certain things are getting hung up, but also the way that we build our environment. So we try to take the approach to be very, very cognizant of what's happening with our developer teams and try to be kind of really involved in their meetings and their planning and understand, okay, what are you guys doing? What has changed to your architecture? What has changed to your code? And what would that mean for X, Y, and Z? And try to figure those things out ahead of time so we don't run into performance issues, but sometimes we do. And we do require that we have performance done before something goes to deployment, just so that we're able to check off the boxes, make sure things are seamless, and there's not a huge issue when something is in production. And we don't want any of our customers to see any of our red flags. We want it to be a smooth process. So yeah, that's why it's kind of really imperative that we do that, to make sure simply that things just don't break when they're not supposed to. So what do we do and how? So as I said, we provide guidelines for production support for applications. We develop our standards for any infrastructure. We're also accountable for recommending the use of and implementation of certain tools when it comes to performance. And we also seek out different tasks and directions for people to follow when it comes for testing. So when you come to us for testing, it's not just checking the box. There's actually a list of things that we need to check, that our teams will come to us and say, hey, this changed, we need to check this. This is what our architecture looks like. We'll go through their architecture with them and kind of give them our feedback on them. But that's mostly what a day in the life of a performance architect looks like. We're really trying to be cognizant of our applications and how they could be running on the best performance that they could. It's difficult when you have a lot of teams coming at you with a lot of different testing, but it's crucial and imperative to our customer experience, both inside and out of the company. So we try to do things and try to get ahead of the game. So with a lot of the tooling that we put out there, if anything has changed in our process, we try to be the educators as well. So we'll create, how-to guides on certain things, how developers themselves can go ahead and do some performance on their code. So for example, we do use like Chrome DevTools, which I'm not too sure if you guys are familiar with, but we do that. And recently we've decided like this is something that our developers could be doing and that they should be doing real time to understand the performance of their web pages. So we went ahead and created like a how-to guide for them and had kind of like a workshop, just making sure everyone knows kind of how to use that tool and why that they should be doing it throughout their process of development. So it really encompasses a whole lot. But throughout this performance role, I've also done a lot of things with Erica. So I also worked with Erica on some cloud architecture work, doing a lot of like cost benefit analysis of the cloud, since this cloud might not be a new thing, but it's still pretty new, and companies are getting used to how they should use it and what that means for pricing, because it's a completely different mechanism than what we're used to using. And I also work a little bit in reference architecture, and reference architecture is kind of, again, exactly what it sounds like, but it's basically architecture guides that people can look at when they want to refer to a pattern that may have been built out already. But performance touches a little bit of everything, which is why I'm enjoying my time here and I'm learning a lot, but that's the basis of kind of performance architecture. I've only been in performance architecture for, I think, what is it, eight months now? And I came into this role with very little programming background. So I'm kind of still really getting used to it and still trying to wrap my head around all the moving parts and pieces. But so far, that's kind of what my day looks like, what my part of the team is responsible for. And just as Erica asks, are there any questions before we move on to kind of opportunities at Travelers about architecture in general? All right, sounds like we're doing our job, which is a good thing. All right, so with that, I did just want to like highlight our technology leadership development program. So it's the program that I'm currently in and the program that Erica graduated from. We do have a lot of internship opportunities. So this past summer, we had almost 90 interns based in Hartford, Hunt Valley, and St. Paul. So those are kind of like our three main locations that we do recruitment for. Within the program, you have many opportunities to be in really across the organization. So personal insurance, business insurance, bond and specialty, claim. We have enterprise business intelligence and analytics, cybersecurity. There's a lot that goes into it, but basically the full-time program, it's a 2 to 3 year program. Currently there's 53 of us, but the program's looking to expand. So we're actually hoping to get towards a program that's more of in the 100s, which I think is really awesome, especially because of COVID. I know a lot of people are hurting to find places, but Travelers is doing really, really good with their job offerings. A little bit more about us. So it is a rotational program. So what that means is, for example, I'm in my 3rd year. My first rotation, I was a Scrum Master on an artificial intelligence team at Travelers. My second rotation, I was on an innovation team, and I did a bunch of proof of concepts with a bunch of startups in the Hartford area, which was pretty cool. And now I'm in architecture, and come December, January, I'll be rotating into my final role, and then I'll graduate into the company kind of with a role that aligns with my career path. But that being said, I'm sure you see the variety of roles that I've had. There's a ton of different rotations you could have, whether you're interested in infrastructure, you're interested in engineering, cybersecurity. We also do offer a lot of agile roles as well. You're introduced to a lot of different people, whether that's a good or bad thing, but all experiences are good experiences. So you're introduced to a lot of different management styles. You're introduced to a lot of the leadership in the company, which is really good. There is training and development. So we focus on technical skills and soft skills. And then we also work on like your own branding, your own personal growth, your own networking. So it's just a good opportunity if you're looking for one. That being said, I did want to put this up here, and I do know that the slides were sent to Terry, but I wanted to highlight this because I thought it was important. We do have 5 open positions for co-ops this year. And you'll see that over over here on the right side of the screen. We do have 5 roles open, located in Hartford. We do provide housing. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely feel free to ask questions. There were 3 students from Northeastern that did it this past year. So they actually went through being at Travelers for a little bit, then COVID hit and they were remote the rest of the time. And then we also do offer a ton of internships, and these are our full-time job recs. So if you guys were interested and you wanted to go to careers@travelers.com, you could definitely do that and look into it a little bit more. But like I said, I just wanted to touch on it because I don't know where you guys are all at in your college careers, but it's definitely something to start thinking about. But also we do have the co-op experience as well. So with that, thanks for having us tonight. And I don't know if you guys have we wanted to make sure we left enough time to talk really about any questions, whether it could be about IT architecture, it could be about Travelers, it could be about job opportunity, or, it could be about how did you navigate the world after college? Really, we're here to talk to you about anything that you want. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to start asking. I'm gonna stop sharing.
So I was wondering, Casey, I think you said you majored in communications.
Yep.
So I was just wondering how you got into tech and what that process was like. Like, did you always know you were into tech, or did you realize it later on?
Yeah.
Or, it was intimidating or anything?
Yeah, so I started college at the University of Rhode Island, and I hated it. I hated URI. I did not like being there, just being blunt. I didn't like it at all. And I was also a computer science major. They started you off with Python, which was scary in and of itself, to be completely honest. But also I just I liked learning about technology. I didn't love programming. And when I came to Travelers, I got an internship right after my freshman year of college. I came to Travelers in their IT program, and I actually worked for an architecture team. I worked for an architecture team, my first internship, and they kind of got me involved in more of the leadership type of work than being hands-on keyboard. And I learned a lot more about technology than I thought I would. The next summer I came back and I did a server optimization project, which my manager had me basically lead up with the business line. So I was going to business owners and I was saying, you have these servers and you're never using this memory, and I'm going to take that back from you. And I kind of learned in that role that I was good at learning about the technology, but also leveraging my communication skills to kind of bridge that gap between IT and business. Cause sometimes there's a weird gap between the two in organizations. And that's when I really started to like the ideal of working more in the technology field. So that's when I decided to apply to the full-time program, technology wise. And since then, like I said, I've had experiences with artificial intelligence. I was able to conduct 6 proof of concepts with different technology startups. So anywhere from image analytics to customer sentiment. I was doing projects like that. And now I took this rotation as kind of a further leap into the technology world to see, what else is out there and what else I could learn and kind of build off of that. So yeah, I was a confused college kid. I know a lot of people go through that, but that's where I was at. But I knew I liked Travelers as a company, so I kept trying out different roles that they had, and now this is kind of where I've landed in my 3rd rotation. So I don't know that it was always known, but I'm glad I got to where I was through it all, and that's something that I think was beneficial for me being a part of the rotational program, because I feel like a lot of people come out of college and they're like, I think I know what I like, but I don't really know what I like. And that was kind of helpful for me towards taking those steps.
Looks like we have a question in the chat. When are we going back to the office, and what are, I'm guessing, Travelers' plans for in-person work? So Labor Day weekend, Travelers formally opened the office for non-workplace essential volunteers. So they've been very clear that their stance is employees only go back when they are comfortable with going back. If you do choose to go back, we are currently limited to 10% of our employee population. Originally, it was in 5 offices. We've just expanded, I believe, starting this week to an additional 50 offices. And it's very hotel space right now. If you do go in, you must go in for 3 days during the week. You must sit at the same desk. If there are folks, and I'm sure we haven't run into this yet because I think only 3% of the 10% are actually taking, well, 3% of what could have been 10% are taking advantage. So there's really maybe 2 or 3 people on a floor, but if someone whose desk was formerly near yours is also in the office, like a conversation has to be had about making sure that you're sitting 6 feet apart, sitting in a separate desk. So I think we'll end up probably moving towards a hotel space model, but right now it's a very slow roll back into the office. And it's been very well communicated, which I personally plan to take advantage of, that if you want to continue to work from home, that Travelers supports you doing so. So I don't plan, especially not during the winter, not during flu season, going back. So I probably, the earliest I'll think about it would be like spring of next year. Casey, I don't know how you feel, but.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been getting, at first, it was like weird. At first you're kind of like, okay, this is happening. Like, we're going to be out of work for like maybe 2 months, you know, out of the office. And then it got longer, and I'm pretty used to working at home now. I really enjoy it, but I think certainly Travelers has been really good about like, it's your choice. Like, we're allowing this amount of employees to come back. If you want to, you can, but it's not, you don't have to. For example, Jeff, who leads up mine and Erica's team, he was very open and honest with us. He went back Labor Day, but he said, you know, just because I'm going back, don't feel like you guys have to. And he was just really open with that. And I don't think anyone really on our team went back, but he just said, you know, you don't have to at all. It's up to you. I'm going back because I don't feel like I do my best, you know, in my basement, at my desk. I know I'll do better in he has an office at Travelers. So he's like, I know I'll do better in my office. So that's why I'm going back. But there's definitely no like push to go back. It's more about, you know, your own opinion and your own wants and needs. So I'm thinking the same of Erica. I'm definitely not going back when it starts to snow. I will be in my home, but yeah.
We even hosted our entire internship program virtually this year. They sent to all of your equipment, like headset to mouse to keyboard to laptop. I chose to purchase my own monitors, so I actually have 2 very large monitors in addition to my actual laptop. That was just a personal preference because I think that I work the most efficiently that way. But Travelers did let us go back into the office and bring back things from our desk should we want to. We have a daily form to fill out if you do choose to go into the office. They take your temperature, they do all those goodies. You have to certify that you don't have any other symptoms to be let back in the office. So they're kind of tracking from that perspective as well. But I love my setup. I think my dogs love my setup because they get to hang out in the room with me. And I feel like I've been just super productive at home. So it's possible that Travelers will also let some of us work from home, like kind of make our own type of schedule. So go in the office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, work from home Thursday, Friday, always. And then we switch hoteling with someone who works from home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and is in the office Thursday, Friday, always. So I think we won't really know until a full office plan goes back, but it will definitely be interesting because most of our spaces are agile spaces where you're sitting directly next to someone and sharing a screen. And I don't know that anyone will be comfortable with that, especially not kind of corporate for a while. So it'll be a while, I think, before we really go past probably 25 or 50% in the office. So great question.
I had a question about if either of you guys have any advice for either students who are currently in college studying computer science, or for students who are going to graduate soon and might be looking for jobs, or even just looking for co-ops.
So my advice as a former computer science major was, if you have the opportunity to take or audit, is that what they call it now? It was called audit, like wasn't a grade, but you got to take it, like business and finance classes. It will help you tremendously in the real world, regardless of where you end up working, not just because we're working in finance, but because like projects cost money, and understanding the concepts of business is super important. I wish that I had the opportunity. Thankfully, Travelers offered a lot of that, to Casey's earlier point, as part of the program, but I was clueless, and a lot of the more like management information systems like type folks had definitely a leg up as far as not necessarily interpersonal skills, but when you understand the business wants and the business needs, and it's not just like the business is talking to you about business and you're talking at them about technology, and there's no like understanding in the middle. It just gives you, which is like a huge thing in architecture, it gives you an ability to tailor the conversation and lead the business to your line of thinking by talking in their terms. Like, hey, by the way, this will cost us half, but will double the number of leads that you guys are generating, or being able to do this will like raise our like NPS from, 7.2 to a 8 or whatever. Like when you can speak in their terms, and you're not just like, React is the direction that everyone is going, so we should do it too. Like the business doesn't know what that means. So I think that that is like a huge thing. And I'm sure Casey kind of can speak to it coming from a communications background. She probably uses more of those skills, and the actual technology is going to change. You're going to have to learn how to keep up with it. So definitely if you can take even some of those basic skills, or do it on like a Coursera or like one of those other like free type online classes, and just like learn some of those fundamentals, because they are huge.
Yeah, I think like from the other realm of it, so just like as a student in college, I'd say like it's never too early to put yourself out there. So like I said, I started my first internship right after my freshman year of college. Not many of my friends were doing that, but I felt like I needed to, and I did, and I'm happy that I did, because in this day and age, not so much I don't think with computer science, but with a lot of different majors, it's hard to find jobs. But the more connections you're able to make and the more networking opportunities that you have, the better you're setting yourself up for the future, whether that's internal at the company you guys are maybe have had internships with, whether it's going to events at your school. I know everything is probably going to be virtual this year, but don't look at like that as like a negative. I'd probably say that people are probably not going because they're virtual, but you should be going because you're going to be putting your face out there. And I think that's extremely important. The other, like kind of going along with what I said before, like no experience is a bad experience. So just tailoring your mindset to that, kind of getting your face out there, doing your networking, learning about companies is just incredibly important, because it builds your network to be super duper long. Like my second internship, I had a executive mentor, and she would meet with me every other week, and she would have me meet with 10 people in the company in 2 weeks, just to like learn about them, know what they do, put my face out there, get comfortable talking to different people, because like Erica said, in corporate there are many different type of people. There are those technologists that you're going to talk to, and it's very technically heavy. And then there's the other side of the block that's very like, might be very concrete business. And then there's just people in between that are like kind of like me and Erica, and we're like all over the place and like high energy. So it teaches you how to also manage those conversations. But I think just getting yourself out there early, going to any networking type of event that you could, and making it known and well aware of your brand, I think is important. So who you are, what you do, what's important to you, and kind of that elevator pitch that I'm sure you guys heard about. Those are important aspects to think about too, even now as a college student.
Any other questions? These are good questions, Ben. I'm always nervous that no one's going to ask questions and we're just going to sit here.
Yeah.
Smile at each other. Cool. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, Casey and I can give you guys our emails if you have follow-up questions that you think about later on down the road and you want to reach out. Casey, are we sharing this deck with them or no? I mean, I guess it's recorded.
Yeah.
The session is recorded.
Yeah. I think the deck was sent to Terry earlier today by her name's Hannah. So if you ask Terry, I think she has the deck and she could certainly expose that to you all. It's been signed off on a legal team, so you guys could do what you kind of wish to do with it. But like I said, there's also the job recs in there if you guys wanted to check those out. I don't think I put our emails in them, but we could definitely forward those off to Terry and she could forward them to you just so you guys have them. Find us on LinkedIn. Connect with us, keep us in mind. We're here to talk. So me and Erica are not shy at all. So
all right, cool. If you guys don't have any other questions, I think we can close out for the night.
Do you guys mind if I take a quick virtual selfie of us? Thumbs up. You guys cool with that? All right. Just making sure that everyone's comfortable. Let's see if you can see my phone. All right. Kyle. Sweet. All right. Awesome. It's fun talking to you guys. Thanks for having us too. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
All right, thanks so much for coming, Casey, Erica, and just an FYI, if you do have any information to send us, feel free to send it through our club email because it's a little bit easier than having to forward stuff to a bunch of different e-board members. But yeah, it was great having you guys, and yeah, just if you are interested in talking to Casey or Erica in greater detail, we're happy to send your questions their way. They're a really incredible resource.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.